States spends. If you just scroll down, on the left is what the United States spent in, what does it say at the top, Jeff, 2012? Compared to the next 4 highest military spending countries. So you've heard people use the word absurd, what we're spending. The adjectives are just endless. So about the resolution very simply and clearly asks Minnesota state and federal representatives to, quote, make an effort. That's all it says. Would you make an effort to shift federal funding priorities from military to domestic priorities? We're asking them to just try to change something that is clearly terribly, terribly wrong with our national priorities. And perhaps many of you have already seen that chart, but I think the visual helps us. How our country spends its money is a reflection on each and every one of us. And this military spending, to some of us, is a travesty. That the U.S. spends as much as the next 19 highest spenders combined? Who are we? What do we care about? 9/11 is more than a decade behind us. Are we going to be stuck forever in the mentality that has led us to this kind of national spending priority? What has it actually bought us? Isn't it way past time to change this priority? Why would you be afraid to vote for this resolution? The resolution does not include the 148th Fighter Wing of the National Guard. It does not reduce support for veterans. It does not, according to our earlier conversation with a counselor, it does not say stop all military spending now. The resolution simply asks you to make a formal request to Minnesota representatives. Make an effort to shift spending priorities. It's true this resolution is a little different from most city council business, yet it seems to me that this really is your business and our business. Make this request so that we will be able to convert billions of dollars from military to peacetime spending for goods and services that meet the needs of the people here at home. Be bold. Lead us towards this change. How about a unanimous or close to it vote on this resolution?
And it started very early in our system, and you got to think about it. And it is cutting us down. We are being destroyed. We are being bankrupted in this country with a budget that's over 50% on the military. And that doesn't include veterans.
Before I start, I'm Justin Anderson. I'm a student at UMD. Semesters in, and already drowning in debt like most of my classmates, with no security of job placement upon graduating. There's a huge issue with funding and funding of public education. Both of my parents are in education in central Minnesota. We have one of the highest graduation rates, one of the highest test rates in the nation, and we have huge problems with funding. The fact that huge proportions of our tax dollars are going towards sending young men like myself to slaughter and filling the pockets of Lockheed Martin instead of funding public education and restructuring and better funding and better educating and higher education is a huge issue. It is unsustainable and will reach a critical mass and will collapse. Anybody here thinks that the student strikes and the debt strikes in Quebec, Montreal were a problem, give it 5 or 10 years, it will be here and it will be nationwide because there will be no other option. Thank you for your time.
I'll tell you, it's got a lot of strong support here. The Minnesota ASAP, the Arms Spending Alternative Project. It's a big idea. There's a lot of endorsers in the city, and there's strong support in this room. Could I have everyone that's in support of the Minnesota ASAP stand, please, just for a moment? So you can see that there's a lot of strong support. Thank you. We have to realize that this austerity talk that we're having across the nation is a false conversation. There really is money. We're not broke. We're not broke. There is funding. We've put so much into the military, as you've heard from earlier speakers. We can be safer in this nation by cutting back on our military and spending and having less spent for policing the world and more for covering our human needs. Eisenhower was right when he warned us back in 1961 about the military-industrial complex, and we have to look at this excessive Pentagon spending that we have. It's been mentioned that Minnesota alone spends $40 billion for the wars in Iraq.
I'm fortunate in some ways in that I get to sit on 2 manufacturing boards, one that represents Northwest Wisconsin, one that represents Northeast Minnesota. And I can't tell you the number of employees in this city and around here and in northern Wisconsin that do DoD work. And it supplants and keeps their businesses open and manufacturing. Because one of the beautiful things about it is it diversifies the portfolio. When the private sector economy is going down, 9 times out of 10, DoD is going up. And there's a number of companies that were on the brink of leaving this area and going out of business, but they were fortunate enough to secure some of those DoD contracts, and it kept them afloat during this recession. That's money in our community. That's mothers, fathers, singles, couples, whatever, that are working, paying taxes to this municipality, to this state, to this federal government, to this county. That type of stuff is one of the biggest funders of education at the higher end because they do academic research, which has led to many of the innovative products we currently have today. Almost everything that's high end was a cast off that was used by the military, and now it's into the private sector. Much of the innovation is funded that way at the higher end in academic research. We worked hard not long ago to get the last block of the F-16 planes. But that wasn't to save the base. That's a step in the puzzle. Because we're working on getting a composite base, which will have 90 to 100 maybe full-time Air Force people here. Because Air Guard bases, quite frankly, are being closed all over the country. And the only way to possibly save it is to get a composite base, which is full-time Air Force coming here. And with a composite base, while we're talking and lobbying generals and other people on Capitol Hill, and our left and right-leaning elected officials to try to do that, to save that for that vital component of our community, at the same time to send a message forward like this, while it's symbolic, sends the wrong message to those people in DC. It's just not the time. It's a real complex thing, and it's so interwoven into our community. You can't believe the manufacturing companies here employing people. And the only reason they stayed open is because DoD contracts help float the boat during these bad times. I don't believe this is the time to bring this forward. Do I think it? I also don't think this belongs at the council level, but on another level, it strongly does, to be sent the other message. We value those things. That leads to innovation in our country, and it keeps people in our community employed, children in school, tax paying. It's a very complex thing.